all questions are interesting. It seems like, here I am at the end of my career, but you're talking about the first day. There actually there were two first days. The first would have been the day that I went to the police academy, which was uh, very interesting in and of itself because I went out to the academy. I think there were 96 people in the class that I did not know. I knew one person in the class, and that was the other officer from Brentwood that went with me Sunday afternoon. And that was I've never been through the military, but I've got to think it's similar to the way a new recruit would go in and go to boot camp because it was, there was a lot of physical activity and a lot of yelling. And, looking back, it was a lot of fun, though. I had a great time. My other first day would have been my first day on the job here on the street in the city of Brentwood. And that was interesting as well. If you recall the history of Brentwood, in December of 1998, there was a tornado that came through the city of Brentwood. And I had just graduated from the police academy, and I was called in the night the tornado hit overnight, and I was called in to work the next evening. So my first actual shift for the city of Brentwood was a shift I wasn't even supposed to be here, working for the city during the tornado. And I rode with another officer because I obviously had not been released. And he and I basically handled all the calls for service while the other officers were working with the tornado damage. I will tell you, for whatever reason, I just really I knew that, when I went to college, I wanted to play baseball. I was a baseball player in college. And I knew at the time that baseball was over and that was no longer an opportunity for me, that I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I didn't know where that was going to lead me. I actually thought I wanted to be a Tennessee Highway Patrol trooper. I interviewed with the THP back in 1987, and for whatever reason, I was not hired, not offered a position. I have a lot of respect for all the people with the THP, but truthfully for me, I think it worked out better that I didn't get on with them because it ultimately led me here to Brentwood, which I kind of feel like is really where I was destined to be, honestly. I'll never forget the letter that I received from the Highway Patrol. I was that sick feeling in your stomach when you're reading the letter and you see almost immediately that you're not going to be hired. So that was a blow. But obviously, I knew I still wanted to be in law enforcement. So I was working at Opryland in security, never given a thought to Brentwood before. A gentleman that I was working with at Opryland was friends with one of our former officers here. He told me that he knew that they were looking for police officers. He recommended I reach out. I actually reached out the same day. And what I was told when I reached out, and I actually talked to Ricky Watson, who, and he may or may not remember this, but he was not the chief at the time. He was actually a captain. He was fairly new to the city. But he told me over the phone that they had just tested for a police officer the day before. So obviously I'm thinking, well, this is the same kind of roadblock that I've gotten at other places. But he said, but I'll tell you what, I've got another officer that couldn't make it to the test that we've allowed to come and take the test tomorrow. And if you can be here, and I don't recall, be here at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning to take the test, we'll let you take the test. And at that time, I hadn't even applied for a job. So I took the day off. My supervisors there at Opryland were nice enough to let me take the day off. And I came to Brentwood and I took the test that morning. And I did well enough that I got an interview. And it was really from that point on, it was like, this is where I knew that I was meant to be in Brentwood because everything was pointing me in this direction. There's no way I could tell you one best day, one best moment. I can tell you the worst day. That's going to be easy. But the best day, there's been so many. There's been hundreds of them. There's so many things. We have so many opportunities in this kind of job. Although many times it's patrol work where I spent 20 years working in the patrol division. And, I really enjoyed that kind of work. You never knew what was around the next corner. You never knew what the next call was going to be. The camaraderie of the shift. I really enjoyed all of that. And those are all moments that I'll cherish and I'll take with me into retirement. So many friendships, so many relationships, so many times that I came across a person in need. I was able to help them with something. So many times that, whether it was a lost child or whatever the case may be, the satisfaction, that you've helped someone, that you've made a difference in their life really means a lot. And And we get those opportunities a lot more than I think many other professions. And that's why I tell young people that are really looking to make a difference in their community that law enforcement is a good way to do that. Because we had no cell phones when I started. If you needed to talk to someone at headquarters, and you needed to do it by telephone, you couldn't do it by two-way radio. That we had to go to a payphone. And we were actually talking about this earlier. I still know the phone number of the payphone that I went to most of the time. There's no payphones in Brentwood now. At the time, that was how we communicated. So dispatch would call you over the radio. You would go to a payphone. They would call you. You would be transferred wherever you needed to be transferred to. So the phones is a huge difference. Just communications in general, the radio system and all that we have today, the technology, the tools that we use. Back in 1988, when I started, we were doing everything by paper. Every report we did was written in ink pen, and all the crash reports, all the incident reports were handwritten. And today, none of those are. They're all electronic. You have I wrote hand traffic citations where you actually wrote out the entire amount of the information that was required on the traffic citation. Today, you scan the driver's license, you scan the vehicle registration, and most of the information is imported into the ticket for you. It's very easy and simple, and it's pulled in. In the old days, you turned a ticket in, and it went through this processing. You have an actual hard ticket. Now it pulls into the system. The data pulls in periodically throughout the day, and the same with incident reports and crash reports. They're all electronically submitted. Then they're submitted into the state of Tennessee, where before it was all done by hand, by paper. So much more efficient the way we're doing it now. Well, I think Brentwood is probably different than most agencies. In the position I'm in now as assistant chief, I'm exposed to stories, articles, things nationwide about police officers, and I read so many stories. And this has not been the case more recently since we've been going through the pandemic and the virus situation. But over the last few years, it really seems like there's been a little shift in the public perception of law enforcement. And I would say that's a national perspective. But on a local level here in Brentwood, there's really not been. The people in Brentwood, we call it social capital, and that's a term that I don't use lightly. It's something that really I feel like makes a difference in the way that we are perceived by the public. And it's not fake, it's real. We want to help the people in this city, and we're more service oriented. We're able to be more service oriented than many of the other agencies, and that's in fairness to them. If you're comparing us to a Metro Nashville, they just have so much more call volume. That I know that's an issue for them. Not trying to be critical of anyone. I would just tell you that we have more opportunities to do those type things. Where we are being a servant to the public. And that's really, at the end of the day, that's what we're all here for. I really, for whatever reason, I feel a strong connection to Brentwood. And I'll tell you, I'd been to Brentwood maybe 2 times before I was hired as a police officer here. But since I've been hired, I just felt such a connection to the community. I moved out here in 2002. I moved my family out here. I wanted my kids to go to the schools in Brentwood. I wanted to live in a neighborhood in Brentwood. I wanted to have friends in Brentwood and have my kids play sports. And, I really wanted to have that connection. So many officers, so many staff of the city of Brentwood are unable to do that just because of the cost of living. It's unfortunate, but, it's just the facts of the matter. It's no one's fault. The real estate costs are such, it's difficult to do that. Luckily I was in a position where I was able to do that. And truthfully, it's been a huge benefit. Both my sons graduated from Brentwood High School. I went on to the University of Tennessee. I couldn't be more proud of them. And my wife she was a principal of an elementary school in in Cheatham County. And she actually moved over, and she's worked in Williamson County since 2003. So really it was a family thing. We all decided that this was the best place, really felt a strong connection. And that was even more so in 2002 when I went through the situation with the shooting. I just moved into my new house in my new neighborhood, and got such a strong support from the community, which was, really helped us to get through that, what was a rough period of time. I told you that it would be difficult to pick one best day. We know May 6, 2002 was probably the worst day, but that was made much easier by all the support that I received by the community. Lessons would be police on the police side, never to make an assumption, because I made an assumption that the suspect in this case, a bank robbery suspect, was armed with a handgun. As I told you earlier, I did not know that the suspect had a rifle until I saw the rifle. And at the time I saw the rifle, I was way too close, and it was way too late for me to change anything about what was about to happen. So, I've told that to a number of young officers that have asked me about that, to anticipate that it's not going to be the way you think it probably will be. I will tell you that, although if you get into this line of work and you wear a gun to work every day, you know that the potential exists. But it was a surreal experience for me when I drove down Franklin Road and there was no traffic on the road at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on a busy Monday afternoon. And I saw that suspect with the rifle in his hand. I mean, it was a surreal moment to think. And again, your mind works really. It's amazing how fast something like that happens, but how much you're able to think during a period of time like that. And what is really just a very short period of time, things that went through my mind, like the rifle and the fact that I was actually going to be attempting to fire my weapon at a human being, which obviously I'd never done before and haven't done since, thankfully. That's something that I hoped that I did not think that I would be forced to do. But in that moment, it was pretty surreal that I was put in that situation. There's plenty of other lessons, lessons for me. Take more time to do the things you need to do with your family. Those were things that, I'm fortunate I had the opportunity to survive that, so I could do those things with my family. I probably put more emphasis on work leading up to that than I should have, and I'm thankful I had the opportunity to make up for some of that. Well, I can't tell you that. It's at this point, I don't have any career plans. I'm not planning on starting a new business, or I'm not going to be going into law enforcement in any other capacity. My plan is my wife and I are moving out to west of here. We bought some property. We're going to build a house. My son is going to grad school down in Memphis, and we're going to be a little bit closer to him, not real close, but closer. And we're going to relax, build a new house, and spend a lot of time with my family. And we'll see where it takes us from there.